What's up everyone, you're watching a Montu Motors video, and today we're going to talk about the Nissan Pulsar GTI-R. So before we get started on the GTI-R, we're going to talk about the Pulsar, which was based on the N14 platform, or the fourth generation of this platform. It was known as many different cars in Japan as the Pulsar, the Sunny in Europe, or the Sentra in New Zealand, South Africa, and North America. It was even known in Taiwan as the RX Pulsar. RX is one of Nissan's subsidiaries that they use in Southeast Asia. The platform was built from 1990 to 1995 and was actually assembled in many different plants. For example, in Kanagawa, Japan, Victoria, Australia, Auckland, New Zealand, Volos in Greece, and Miaolijan in Taiwan. Totally. The mainstream versions could be found as a 5-door notchback, a 3-door hatchback, or a traditional sedan. The N14 actually had 8 different models and a total of 18 available variations. 6 motors were available, anything as small as a 1.3 liter naturally aspirated motor, up to the very popular SR20 DET, which was a turbo dual cam 2 liter. The most performance oriented version of the Pulsar, however, was the GTI-R. This was produced from 1990 until 1994 and was designed as a homologation special so Nissan could compete in the WRC Group A. It used their new at the time SR20 DET, again a 2-liter dual-cam turbocharged motor, producing 227 horsepower and 210 pound-feet of torque. It used their Ateza all-wheel drive system, because all-wheel drive was the big thing back in the day, especially for rally cars, and was made only as the 3-door hatchback. For those of you who don't know, they do count a lot of times the rear door as an extra door, even though you don't actually climb in there to sit. Road-going versions of the GTI-R were easily distinguished by their big rear wing and the bulging hood vent. This was actually a functional hood vent in these cars, however, because it had a top-mount intercooler which allowed air to flow right through the hood and cool the motor. GTI-Rs were all equipped with a 5-speed manual transmission that hooked up to its all-wheel drive. This made for a very fun driver's car. We had one recently at Montu Motors, and I absolutely love driving that thing around. I love hot hatchbacks, and this is a perfect example of an old school 90s hot hatch. In its factory form, it was able to accelerate from 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds and do the quarter mile in under 14 seconds. So again, at the time, we're talking about a pretty quick car. And the top speed was officially listed at 144 miles an hour. So Nissan actually produced 2 different models of the Pulsar GTI-R. The first was the GTI-RA, or Alpha. This was more or less their everyday driver car. It came with air conditioning, power windows, mirrors, and ABS. Perfect for everyday use. Then they had the GTI-RB, or Beta. This was more of their homologation special and had everything such as air conditioning, power windows, ABS, etc. removed from the car, but they were available as options. They cut the curb weight by 66 pounds, bringing it down to 2,624 pounds. Mechanically, they had a few changes, such as shorter gear ratio, a front LSD instead of the open from the Alpha model. Nissan also offered a Nismo version, which was based on the Beta, and had some of their Nismo rally options, such as their suspension, LSD, seats, roll cage, and footrests. Nissan only produced 21 of them, and you can recognize them by the Nismo VIN plate on the firewall. So for those of you who are looking to purchase a Pulsar GTI-R and use it for daily use, track use, etc., there's something you might want to know about this car before you go through with the purchase. There's a lot of great things about this car. Again, powertrain, drivetrain, even decent reliability in the car, depending on how heavily you modify it. But there's also another little flaw. Your functioning hood scoop sitting at the top of the hood actually allows rainwater to fall inside the car. Big deal, right? Well, this was a situation that actually happened to us at Montu. So there was one day we had our Pulsar parked outside. It started raining. We were all inside working on cars, moving stuff around, etc. And we went to go move the Pulsar and it wouldn't start up. So what had happened was the rainwater actually fell inside the hood at just the right angle and hit the alternator and shorted it out. It took us a little while to figure this out, but eventually we realized that that's what had happened. So we had to go through and replace the alternator. You wouldn't normally think that in your car that that's something you need to consider. However, because the design of the Pulsar's hood scoop, this actually can happen. So it's just something to be wary of. Again, I wouldn't want to detract anybody from buying this car because it's an awesome car. But it is something to be wary of. And if you're a DIY mechanic and want to do the work yourself, if you have to replace your alternator, it's a very tight fit down there. Everything's tightly compacted in there because you have a turbocharged motor that's pretty much the full size of the engine compartment, as well as an all-wheel drive system, and depending on your model, you might have an LSD in there as well. So there's not a whole lot of space to get big American hands, which can be frustrating. Alright, getting on now. The GTIR unfortunately was only produced in the one generation, the N14. However, as kind of its legacy more or less, there was a performance variant in the following version, the N15. In Japan, they had a version called the VZ-R N1. It was a racing homologation special, and it was designed to compete against the Honda Civic Type R. It used Nissan's SR16 VE, which was a 1.6 liter, and had 197 horsepower and was naturally aspirated. At the time, its motor had the highest specific output for a naturally aspirated production car. This has since been beaten by many other cars such as the S2000, Ferrari 458, etc., but at the time this was very impressive. Now this car wouldn't be as quick as the Pulsar GTI-R, but it's still cool that they offered a performance variant later on in its life cycle. So the Pulsar is still being made today and is currently in its C13 generation, which has been here since 2014. And by here I mean in existence, because the Pulsar is not sold in America, unfortunately. However, they have talked about making a performance version of this new Pulsar, and it comes in the guise of the Pulsar Nismo. This was shown at the Paris Auto Show a few years ago, and more recently they've talked about making this car a reality, which I think is an awesome idea. I also think it would be an awesome idea for them to bring this car to America. Don't know if you know this, Nissan, but there's a market for hot hatches here. Not really a secret. Plus, if you look at Nissan's lower level of cars, the Versa, or the Sentra, which really hasn't been cool since the last SER Spec V, and I use that word loosely, they need a performance car that's more affordable for the masses. And I think the Pulsar Nismo would be excellent for that role. But we'll see what happens. Hopefully Nissan brings it over, but I'm not going to hold my breath. Anyway, we hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a lot about the Nissan Pulsar. If you're interested in purchasing a Pulsar GTI-R, you can email us at sales@montumotors.com. Again, thank you for watching this video, and have a good one.
Definitely recommend Montu Motors.
And I would definitely go through Montu Motors again and again.
Registration, insurance, all that stuff, but at the end of the day, they took care of every fear you could possibly have. They'll be able to answer it right on the spot.
That was a ridiculously simple process for getting a JDM car.
I couldn't be happier with my purchase from Montu Motors.